The Allen Line Company appreciates all of the dedicated carriers it takes to move loads across the U.S. Stay safe.
OOIDA, representing America's truckers since 1973, presents Landline Now with your host, Mark Redding.
As we recorded Wednesday, New York Governor Kathy Hochul indefinitely postponed a congestion pricing plan for Manhattan. I'll get the latest on the situation from Zach Miller of the Trucking Association of New York. A safety group is shining a light on the importance of non-commercial drivers securing their loads. We speak with the woman who started Secure Your Load Day about why this mission is so near and dear to her heart. And finally, Louisiana lawmakers are taking a look at changes to rules for truck owners' liability and towing. Scott Thompson gets the details on that and more from our state legislative expert, Keith Goebel. But first, the news with Scott Thompson.
Thanks, Mark. The Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration has announced plans to host an in-person listening session on safety fitness determinations for motor carriers. The public listening session will be on June 29th at the Texas Trucking Show in Houston. In addition to the in-person listening session at the NRG Center in Houston, FMCSA is also planning for 2 online-only listening sessions in June and July. The sessions will focus on the development of an updated methodology to determine when a motor carrier is not fit to operate commercial motor vehicles. For more details, check out our story on landline.media. Last summer, FMCSA published an advance notice of proposed rulemaking that asked for feedback on whether the process to determine a motor carrier safety fitness needs to be revised. In formal comments submitted in November, the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association told the agency that the current system is ineffective. As the Biden administration forges ahead with plans for a future of electric vehicles, some senators this week had to ask, where is the charging infrastructure? That question and others were directed toward Administrator of the Federal Highway Administration, Shaylin Batt, during a Senate Environment and Public Works Committee hearing on Wednesday. Senator Jeff Merkley of Oregon noting that the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act set aside funds for 500,000 charging ports, but only 7 publicly funded sites have been created.
We're now 3 years into this. Now, if you come out to my state and you're looking to drive an electric vehicle around the state, even utilizing just those that are near the major highways, not a single one's been built. Not one. 3 years in, not one. What's the problem?
There's a number of problems. States have huge amounts of other programs that they're working with. We have stood up the regulations. There's Title 23 concerns. We're working through them on a state-by-state basis. But what I said in my opening statement is true. There are thousands of chargers that are going to come online this year. And we are on track to hit the president's goal of 500,000 charging ports before the end of the decade. So share your frustration on where we are today, but confident that we're going to hit the goal.
Yeah. Well, it is a big deal because you can't really depend upon an electric car if there's not a charging capability. And the fact that we passed this bill years ago and not one charging station has been built in my state and only 7, as you put it, 7 sites around the country, that is a vast administrative failure.
During Administrator Batt's testimony, he said that the number of publicly available electric vehicle charging ports had increased by 90%, with more than 183,000 across the country. However, the majority of those ports were created by the private sector. Administrator Batt said that only dozens were created with public funds. While most of the discussion on electric vehicles at Wednesday's EPW hearing involved charging stations for passenger vehicles, the lack of infrastructure also has been a key issue related to the electrification of heavy-duty trucks. At a House subcommittee hearing in April, Taki DeRocos, vice president at Pitt, Ohio, was critical of the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency's final rule that requires a quarter of sleeper cab tractors to be zero direct tailpipe emission by 2032.
This unworkable mandate ignores operational realities and places a costly burden on trucking companies. Currently, there are extremely limited quantities of battery electric trucks on the road. In fact, less than 1% of trucks registered on the road today are zero-emission trucks. In 2022, after meticulous evaluation and planning with our truck manufacturer, we put into service our first battery electric trucks. They cost 2.5 to 3.5 times more than traditional diesel-powered units and that excludes charging infrastructure. Although battery electric trucks show promise in certain applications, it is apparent that they are not ready for broad deployment due to technology limitations.
The OOIDA Foundation also recently pointed out the operational hurdles largely ignored by the EPA. The foundation said that the EPA's mandate would require 1.4 million electric charging stations to be installed by 2032, and that truckers would need to invest $620 billion for the charging infrastructure. The governor of Virginia is letting California-style emission standards expire at the end of this year. Governor Glenn Youngkin announcing the decision on Wednesday, citing the opinion of the state's attorney general. He said Virginians should get to choose which vehicles fit their needs. The state's Clean Cars law, first adopted in 2021, was going to work in phases. By 2026, 35% of all new cars and trucks sold in the Commonwealth were going to be required to be electric. By 2035, that percentage was set to jump to 100%. A Kentucky company has agreed to pay a $1.2 million fine for selling emission control systems known as defeat devices. The EPA announced a settlement with Thoroughbred Diesel on Tuesday. In addition to the settlement, the company agreed to stop selling the defeat devices and to remove all advertisements, photos, videos, and information related to them. In a news release, the EPA said cracking down on the sellers of illegal defeat devices is a top enforcement priority as they contribute to air pollution and impede efforts to implement air quality standards. Between 2020 and 2023, the EPA resolved 172 cases involving illegal defeat devices, resulting in penalties totaling $5.6 million. A truck driver in Texas will be compensated after being fired for refusing to violate hours of service rules. This case dates back all the way to June of 2020 when, after working 19 hours, the unnamed truck driver was told by his superiors at Crane Masters to keep driving. The trucker refused, citing federal regulations, and was fired the next day. OSHA investigators said that's a violation of the Federal Whistleblower Protection Program, which protects workers from retaliation after reporting violations of the law. A federal judge last month ruled in favor of the truck driver and ordered Crane Masters to pay them $15,000 in back pay, interest, and compensatory damages. Be extra careful when driving through work zones in Ohio for the foreseeable future. The state has launched an enforcement campaign aimed at preventing crashes. Ohio Governor Mike DeWine announcing the crackdown alongside partners from the Ohio State Highway Patrol and Ohio Department of Transportation.
While drivers should expect that troopers could be monitoring any work zone at any time, we are prioritizing what ODOT and what the patrol considers the most dangerous construction sites in the entire state.
They include Interstate 70 in Muskegum, Interstate 75 in Montgomery, and Interstates 475 and 280 in Lucas, among others. And finally, Trucker Path recently rated the best trucking corridors based on 3 metrics: parking availability, truck stop ratings, and fuel prices. The trucking app says Interstate 90 came out on top, followed by Interstate 5 and Interstate 44. Truck parking availability was weighted more heavily in the calculations due to it being identified as a top concern among drivers. That's Landline Now News for today. I'm Scott Thompson.
Thanks, Scott. Congratulations to Kenneth Becker of Montgomery, Texas. He's received the OOIDA Safe Driving Award for 32 years of safe, accident-free driving. That's the equivalent of a car driver going 240 years without causing a single accident. Marty Ellis and OOIDA's tour truck, The Spirit of the American Trucker, are at the American Truck Historical Society National Convention and Truck Show in York, Pennsylvania. Stop in, say hi to Marty, and join OOIDA for a $10 discount. Next, I'll discuss the indefinite postponement of the New York City Congestion Pricing Plan with Zach Miller of the Trucking Association of New York. And Ashley Blackford discusses non-commercial drivers securing their loads with Robin Abel. We'll be right back. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
Every year, 28 million people are trafficked globally. The Your Roads, Their Freedom campaign seeks to raise awareness in the transport industry. Truck and bus drivers, be vigilant on the roads. If you see something suspicious, text 233-733 or be free.
Are you tired of the IRS following you around like a dark cloud? Call 888-557-4020 and get your life back.
Firestone tires are for more of everything, with more durability for more miles and more confidence in your fleet. Firestone's tested tires help fleets save with value where it matters most. Learn more at bridgestonenationalfleet.com/4moremiles.
It's tested and proven. Burn 2.1% less fuel when you balance all wheel ends with Centromatic. Call 800-523-8473 to get the OOIDA discount.
Landline Now, welcome back. As we reported Wednesday, New York Governor Kathy Hochul indefinitely postponed a congestion pricing plan that would have charged trucks up to $54 for every trip into the central business district of Manhattan. However, postponed is not the same as canceled, and that's why I spoke that day with Zach Miller, Director of Metro Region Operations for the Trucking Association of New York, to get the latest on the situation. First of all, we obviously have news regarding this plan for congestion pricing in Manhattan. Can you explain to us what's happened?
Yes. So earlier today, Governor Hochul, who controls the MTA. The MTA is a state agency. Announced that they were going to indefinitely postpone the congestion pricing plan. So the plan was originally supposed to go into effect the end of this month, June 30th. And this morning, she announced that there would be an indefinite postponement.
Did she mention what her reasoning was, why she's decided to do this?
Yeah, there were a couple of things. She mentioned the economic impact. She mentioned that Manhattan is still recovering from the pandemic. We are living through inflation, and that the costs, any additional costs, particularly to the middle class, would be incredibly problematic right now. So she really, for the first time, mentioned that economic impact. There were also reports coming out in the media that there was some congressional pressure put upon her to delay this until after the election. What's interesting, going back to what the governor actually said and not any sort of, unconfirmed reports, was that she really did talk about the economic impact, and she really did talk about the effects that this would have on the middle class and, vis-a-vis small business owners and people who work for small businesses. And those are the points that we have been making throughout this entire process, that there is a significant economic impact to the tolling rates that were set, and that it would create quite an undue burden on many of the businesses and then the consumers if this plan were to go through.
So they've said they've postponed it. Obviously, that's not the same as canceled. What do you think the possibilities are that they could retool this and then come back with a different plan, but still some form of congestion pricing?
And to be fair, that's really what we've been asking for all along. We understand the need to reduce discretionary travel in places around New York City, including the Manhattan Central Business District. We also do understand how important public transportation is to the region, and support, proper funding mechanisms for that. But the plan as was proposed, the more we looked at it, and this gets to the heart of our lawsuit, was it is unconstitutional. The way that they charge trucks more than passenger vehicles, the way that they charge trucks per trip instead of per day, the fact that this gets into questions about setting rates and setting routes. It was a unconstitutional plan. Now, were the MTA to look at this and to say, you know what, we really need an equitable plan. We need a plan that treats motorists the same way, a plan that really does get to the heart of how we can reduce discretionary travel into the zone, and the plan that provides some funding for the transportation systems, a plan that really works for all New Yorkers. That's something that we've been asking for, and we'll see if that's where the state of New York decides to go with this. So as of now, there's a lot that we're sort of waiting for guidance and information on, but definitely it would be nice to see New York come back to the table with a plan that's far, far more equitable than the current congestion pricing.
You mentioned the lawsuit and some of the reasoning behind that, and just for folks listening, this is a lawsuit where the Trucking Association of New York had filed a lawsuit against the Metropolitan Transportation Authority, the MTA you mentioned earlier, the Triborough Bridge and Tunnel Authority, and as I recall, New York Attorney General Letitia James over this plan. You mentioned the constitutional concerns there, and obviously that is a very big concern. But you also mentioned that there are some unique characteristics of the trucking industry that really made this much worse for truckers than other businesses. Can you explain that?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And just so your listeners know who may not be familiar with the ins and outs, the Triborough Bridge and Tunnel Authority. The TBTA, they're an arm of the MTA. So that's the MTA's Bridges and Tunnels division. And they're the ones who do set toll rates. So the things that people were not aware of as it relates to the congestion pricing tolling plan is that trucks were going to be charged more than cars. Cars were going to face a once-a-day $15 toll rate. So for small trucks, that rate would be $24, and for larger trucks, that would be $36. And that's per trip. So unlike cars that can come in and out of the zone all day and only pay one charge, trucks would pay every single time they go into the zone. And this, as we looked at it, not only is that unfair just for trucks who, cross a boundary, but the way the city streets are laid out, we saw situations where trucks would be circling for parking, and they would cross in and out of the zone as they were searching for parking. We have situations where trucks they're going through their delivery route as efficiently as possible, and they have to go cross town. And trucks can't go through Central Park. So they would have to cross back into the congestion zone just to cross town. Situations where trucks would cross into the zone just to get on the 59th Street Bridge to go back to Queens or to Brooklyn to continue making their deliveries. In addition to that, we have the West Side Highway, and the West Side Highway is actually exempt. But when a vehicle gets off the West Side Highway onto the local streets, it is then taxed. And that is a major truck route, below 60th Street in Manhattan. So we have the cases of so many trucks who are taking the West Side Highway as a through route, but then, once they get off to make a delivery, they're taxed. And if they have to get on and off constantly, they're going to be taxed for that. So it really, really, the more we looked at it, the more this was a revenue scheme on the backs of trucks, and that means the businesses that they serve, and that means that end user.
Well, of course, another point that I believe you all brought up is the fact that the money being raised from the trucks was not going to benefit those trucks at all. Isn't it all going to transit?
That's exactly it. So every dollar goes into the MTA and the transit system. So the breakdown was about 80% goes to New York City Transit, which is the subway and bus system in New York City, and then the commuter rails would get the remainder. So that's the Long Island Railroad and Metro North. So not only are trucks charged a higher rate, not only are trucks charged more, per trip instead of per day, but none of the revenue would go back into either the industry or to the infrastructure that the industry relies on. You can't move freight on the subway. You can't move freight on a public bus. and yet we were the ones who would be paying for that upkeep.
I know that your association was working on this issue long before you filed the suit. Can you talk a little bit about the efforts that you made previous to the lawsuit to try and deal with this congestion pricing plan?
Yeah, and I'm so glad you asked that, because this was a last resort. You know, it's not like we wanted to file a lawsuit. We didn't have a choice. We really wanted to work with the state and with the MTA on an equitable plan. And frankly, we still do. We would like to see a plan that treats vehicles equally. We've raised this in public hearings. We have raised this in public comments. We have had conversations with legislatures. We reached out to the Traffic Mobility Review Board, which was the 6-person panel that debated what the toll rates would be. We reached out to every angle we could, and we even organized with other associations a working group of various commercial stakeholders to really talk through what an equitable plan would look like, and to make sure that we're all on the same page, and that were the MTA or the state to be open to discussions that we would all come from the same place. Unfortunately, that's not what wound up happening. Our concerns were largely ignored. There was a lot of talk about how, well, part of the tolling rates have significant off-peak discounts. It's like 75%. So that would be an incentive to move deliveries off hours. And we kept reiterating that, yeah, we really support the off-hour delivery program. We really encourage freight that can be moved to off hours to be moved to off hours. The challenge, of course, being that for the most part, we're not the ones who set that delivery window. It really is set by the receivers. So it's not on us to switch to the off hours. It really is on those receivers to demand the freight off hours. And it gets especially complicated in the congestion zone because so many of the receivers in that zone the buildings are unionized. They have a unionized workforce. They have very strict freight elevator rules. There are construction and job sites that are not going to be open for delivery in the off hours. So that is a section in New York City where there's just not even a lot of capacity for off-hour deliveries. And the response we got over and over again was, well, the off-peak tolling is a benefit to the trucking industry because that'll encourage you to make deliveries off hours. So they were not listening to the issues that we and others have raised, and unfortunately, it created a very unfair and we believe unconstitutional tolling system.
Okay. Well, Zach, that's all I've got. Is there anything that you want to add?
Just quickly to reiterate that the lawsuit is still ongoing. We are waiting for sort of next steps from the court, but we are moving ahead with our lawsuit regardless of today's announcement.
That was Zach Miller, Director of Metro Region Operations for the Trucking Association of New York, talking about action by New York Governor Kathy Hochul to postpone a planned congestion pricing plan that would have charged truckers for every trip into New York City's central business district. You can learn more details about this situation at the website landline.media. Again, that website, landline.media. And of course, you can look up any website link, email address, or phone number we mention on the show by going to the website landlinenow.com. We'll be back in just a moment with more news and information. Please stay with us. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Today's rising costs affect everyone. Replace your harmonic damper with a genuine ViberTech TVD viscous damper to prevent costly repairs and downtime. Keep your money in your pocket and your truck on the road with ViberTech TVD. Recommended replacement at 500,000 miles or 15,000 hours.
Ready to make more money? Use a better load board. For a limited time, get 50% off Truckstop Load Board Pro. Just go to truckstop.com/go and enter promo code READY2024 when you purchase Load Board Pro. Attention professional drivers, do you owe money to the IRS? Integrity Tax Relief Group frees drivers from IRS trouble. Call for help now, 855-976-4291. That's 855-976-4291.
Landline Now, welcome back. Today is National Secure Your Load Day, a safety campaign to bring awareness to non-commercial drivers about the importance of load securement. To speak with me about this is Robin Abel, whose life was altered when a heavy object went through her daughter Maria's windshield and into her face, nearly killing her. Since then, Robin's made it her mission to bring attention to the importance of load securement. She joins me now. Robin, starting off, can you explain to me what Secure Your Load Day is?
Secure Your Load Day I started in 2016. It was mainly because I had done enough legislation to get funding for the states, but I didn't want to make the assumption that the federal government was going to tell the states there was money available. So I decided to start Secure Your Load Day. I sent a letter to every state, and I got an amazing response, and that's really how it started.
Now, can you talk to me, if you don't mind, why this was such a passionate project for you and what led to you starting this?
Wow. Well, it started out like every parent's worst nightmare. You get that call in the middle of the night, and they ask you if your daughter's name is Maria. And I said yes. But right in that moment, it's bad. It's the hospital calling you to tell you it's critical. But my daughter lived, even though I was told she wasn't going to make it. The next morning, they called me and said, "Come back, she's still alive." And I think I knew within a few days that something had to change. Weeks went by, and I talked with the prosecutor, and apparently what happened to my daughter wasn't a crime, and therefore she couldn't even be a victim. And as a mother, that didn't sit right with me, or as a parent. I thought, how can this just be a littering ticket? This changed our lives forever. And it was right then and there that I decided I had to do something to change the law in Washington State to make it a crime. And it was really about never getting even with anybody or making it jail time. It was all about the victims. My daughter wasn't entitled to any victim's compensation. There were no resources available. The driver was long gone, and even when he was caught, he had no insurance. And here we were looking at $1 million, just a hospital. So that's why it started. It wasn't. It was just to make sure that I could do my best to make sure it didn't happen to others. That was really the reason, and that's why I keep pushing it. It's now 20 years. I can't believe I've been doing it that long. But it's taken on a life of its own. And how can you stop when you're making grounds and being successful? And I truly feel that lives are being saved. And so that's how it's become my mission.
Now, since over the past 20 years, I believe you've worked with other families that have been impacted by unsecure loads. Is that right?
Yes, I have.
What has that been like? What are some of, the stories that you have often heard?
Well, it's different for everyone. Very few people this happens to want to be public, and I never push that. I'm there if they want to talk. We have a local woman here. Her name was Heidi Coffey. She lost her husband, Gavin. She was pregnant with her 5th child when the accident happened. And we became friends. We're still friends. And she has continued to support me through this mission. In fact, I keep the picture of her family right above my computer to remind me why I'm doing this. There's another father I reached out to. His name is Paul Reese. He lost his son, Matthew. Matthew died instantly. It was a heavy piece of metal that went through and went right into his heart through the windshield. He never made it home that day. Paul and I have, too, become very good friends, and he has joined in my efforts. He was very public in Arizona, and mainly for the first many years, we just talked. We just needed to share. But he has joined in, and he's very active in Arizona, and I guess he's kind of like my cheerleader. When I call him, I say, "Paul, what do you think? This is what I'm doing." He's like, "Go for it, Robin." And so we've become close friends. There are just a lot of people out there that this has happened to, and they don't really know where to go. It's treated kind of as a litter or called a freak accident, but they're not freak accidents, Ashley. They're not. These are all preventable things. And so I work really hard to let people know this is so simple to fix. This is just a matter of a few minutes, a few dollars equipment, and just like my daughter says, it's about compassion for others. It really is. You know, you need to think of the people driving behind you or all around you. And I truly don't believe people understand aerodynamics. I mean, the back of a truck, forgive my language, is more like a phone, you know. It could literally be a vortex and swept right out. And people just don't understand that. So I just continue my mission. It's getting bigger. I have 46 states involved. And it's really taken off. So I'm very grateful.
You know, when you think back 20 years ago when this tragic incident happened, did you ever imagine 20 years later you'd be fighting this fight and be where you are today?
No, never did. Never did evolve. It just kind of happened, and I've been told I'm very tenacious. I just kept my head down, kept plowing ahead. You just have to be persistent, but you have to want it more than anything. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the difference between myself and maybe others, is that I'm personally impacted. There's no end to the passion I have about doing this. And the hard part is I have to believe I'm saving lives. I don't know it, Ashley. They're never going to come to me and say, hey, I didn't die today, thank you. But I truly believe lives are being saved. Mm-hmm. So between waste facility programs, getting funding at the federal level for the states to do emphasis patrols or to run safety campaigns, that's kind of where I'm at now. And it feels really good, I'll be honest with you, to sit back today and see all the activity going. I Google secure your load some of these mornings, and I see activity all over the country right now.
What changes have you seen since starting this campaign? I know you said you reached out to all the states.
Well, the changes that got to all the states were, you know, I've had two bills in Washington State. I helped a young woman in Alaska change the law. She was a victim, and she reached out to me. It took several years, but we did it. And then I did the first national study with the federal government, which was they had never done it before. So we did the study. Then we changed all the coding in the country. We had to change it, you know, all the way from at the top all the way down to the ticket books. And then I went and got funding. And so I've had several legislation bills on funding. And all of that, by going to the states and getting funding, now they have the money to do this. Whether they choose to use it or not, Ashley, it's all the same pot of money. But the point is, by having it, so recently this was mentioned in the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. So that gave them more funding and really allowed them then to start doing this type of thing. But the bottom line was, unless I would have asked them, I don't know that this would have happened. And so it was really, I think, kind of more the personal touch. I reached out and said, here's the problem. We need to address it. And these people, they're parents too, you know. I reached out to colonels. I reached out to Office of Highway Safety, legislators, whatever it took. And, you know, by putting a personal spin on it, they all got back to me. Very seldom am I turned away. And I think it's that I don't treat them differently. I treat them all as individual states, okay? Whatever they do, I'm grateful for. Give you an example, Louisiana, their lieutenant governor has now put up a billboard, and maybe more than one. It's a huge sign, and it shows a well-secured load in a truck. It says, secure your load. Now, it's part of a litter campaign. But he heard my message, Ashley. And that was big to me. Let's see, who else? Arizona. Arizona goes all out. It's part of their litter program, but Secure Your Load, because of Paul Reef down there, has become huge, and they're a huge contributor to this. Oklahoma, they actually did a whole week for several years, and they partnered with Keep Oklahoma Beautiful. And by the way, Keep America Beautiful has been they've been a big supporter of this, because they realize that it's all combined. And we can help each other. They can save lives and reduce litter at the same time. I guess I would say I've been honored to do this. In a way, I know that sounds funny. It came from something so horrific. But I really feel that very few of us get a chance in life to make a difference like this. And it's really, we're at a crossroads when something happens in your life and you can make a choice to go one way or the other. And my choice was to try to never let it happen to someone else. Now, I know that that's impossible, but I'm going to do my very best, Ashley.
And I'm curious, when you speak with people, do you sometimes find a lot of people, think, well, an unsecure load, they automatically just think of a commercial motor vehicle? Or I had looked up some statistics from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, which said about 81% of unsecured loads are passenger vehicles. Do you find that there's some misconception there, or?
Well, I don't know. I would never venture to say what some people perceive. I'll be honest with you. I don't know what the split is. If I were to take a guess, I would say no doubt the general public, no doubt. But here's where I see the fit. I know it happens to commercial truckers too. So my spin on that is I think commercial truckers can really help us with this by setting the standard, by setting the bar high. None of us are perfect. I know it happens to everybody. However, by setting the example, people see. It's kind of like monkey see, monkey do. If they set the bar a little higher, so would the general public. But I'll be honest with you, I really push for the general public and companies. I really want companies to take notice. You can have a company, Ashley, and they may have a lot of CDL drivers in there and heavy commercial loads and secure those loads. But my point is, what are you doing with your smaller trucks? And usually it's nothing. And so I go after companies mainly because it's a numbers game to me. And I don't, game is the wrong word, but it is. They can make such a difference. But in all honesty, that's why I started the Secure Your Load program at the waste facilities. Most of it's the general public because there's no training. And even commercial drivers, I would like to see how much is touched on load securement. Probably not much. So there's a lot our country can learn. And my daughter brought up a good point today. All the companies or all the stores that, send people out with all the stuff in the back of their truck. When they go to put that in or let the customer load up, do they say to them, hey, maybe they don't. I don't know. I haven't been able to get too many companies involved at this point in terms of when a customer comes in. And I'm not going to mention any of the big box store names, but, that would really help a lot if we could get them on board.
What are some of the things you wish, people hauling loads, whether it be commercially or somebody moving 5 blocks down the street, what do you wish that they would ask themselves and ensure is in place before they haul that?
I would ask them if they wanted their family driving behind that on the way to the next stop. Because early on, I did an interview, and without hesitation, this quote came out of my mouth, and I don't know where it came from, but it was, secure your load as if everybody you love is driving in the car behind you. And that's how I feel. That's how you put the shoe on the other foot. You sit back and you say, is my load good enough? Am I worried? Because there's still a lot of people out there, Ashley, and I mean more the general public. It's an open bed truck. They throw stuff in it. Maybe they think it's heavy. Maybe they think it's crammed in good or up against the cab. But they use no form of load securement. And that's a general. Okay? But that's wrong. Almost every state has a law about load securement.
That was Robin Abel talking about National Secure Your Load Day, a safety campaign to bring awareness to non-commercial drivers about the importance of load securement. For more information, you can visit secureyourload.com. For Landline Now, I'm Ashley Blackford. Stay tuned for more after this.
Penske owns and operates some of the best-maintained vehicles on the planet. Our used trucks come with a 5-year maintenance report and pre-sale inspection. So if you're in the market for a top-quality pre-owned truck, look no further. Search our inventory today at PenskeUsedTrucks.com.
Control your toll costs and eliminate tolling headaches with Prepass Tolls. Prepass Tolls means toll volume discounts. Just one invoice for all tolls and fewer violations. Call 877-878-5970 or go to prepass.com.
Since you started, what you've loved about trucking is the freedom. Heading out on your favorite route, a good driving song, and thinking about truck insurance. Well, maybe not that last one. That's why we're here. At OOIDA, we have a full range of truck insurance products, expert advice, and great customer service, helping you get the right coverage for your operation. Go to OOIDA.com, because your job is to drive. Our job is to help with everything else.
Welcome back, everybody. Time now for our weekly check on the moves states are making that could end up affecting you out on the road one way or another. Today, we'll focus on Louisiana, where lawmakers are considering a couple of bills related to liability and towing, and Florida, where the governor has signed 2 bills into law. Joining us with all the details, our very own Keith Goebel of Landline Magazine. Keith, good to see you.
Scott, how you doing? Are you anxiously anticipating summer?
I'm not anticipating the heat and humidity.
Keeping your eye on the calendar, maybe
Yeah.
once that date hits. What is it, the 21st, 20th?
I think officially now, meteorologically speaking, I think we're into summer now. But yeah, it depends on your definition. But
it feels like summer. Starting to feel like it.
There you go.
I digress.
You digress. Well, we're not going to talk about summer for the next several minutes, but we are going to talk about Louisiana for a few of them. We've got 2 bills here that we're going to talk about, one dedicated to commercial vehicle liability, another to towing reform. Let's start with that liability one there. What's the idea behind this bill, and what would it do?
Yeah, Louisiana's got some warm weather this time of the year, don't they? I'm sorry.
I'm going to have to keep pulling you back on track, Keith.
Anyway, I'm sure it's very pleasant to visit there.
Yes,
just about any time of the year. But anyway, yes. No, hey, talking about... liability for commercial vehicles. A topic of legislation at both the House and Senate has moved to the governor's desk. The focus here is on optional equipment for commercial vehicles, specifying that if it's optional, if it's not required by a state law or federal law, there is no duty for the truck owner to install that equipment. And again, if it's not required by law, they don't have to do that. So, a person who owns a truck, or just if they're the truck operator, or if they're leasing the truck, they would not be liable for failure to install optional equipment. I guess the issue comes up when if the Truck Renting and Leasing Association, I mean, they were part of one of the hearings on this topic, and said that they're noticing there is a trend where you've got lawsuits that are arguing that the truck drivers' failure, or that as far as them following the law, that they may have done that. They may not have done anything wrong as far as just like operating the vehicle, but they should have done more. They should have added some optional equipment, like that
side underrides maybe. That
may have helped prevent an incident. But essentially, what this legislation is getting back to is that if it's not required by a federal or state law, it can't turn into an issue legally.
Yeah, it sounds like a common sense piece of legislation there. You said it's on the governor's desk right now. We'll see if it gets signed into law. But yeah, it makes sense. And again, side underrides is kind of the first thing that popped in my mind there in terms of maybe penalizing somebody for something that happens when, again, that's not required. So we'll keep an eye on that one. Also in Louisiana here, towing reforms. This has been a hot topic nationwide, it feels like, in recent months. There is a bill in the Louisiana House right now that would make some changes to the law there, but we're in the very early stages of this. What's the idea behind this one?
Yeah, definitely this issue is one that it is good to see that it is trending. And when I say trending, I mean there are more and more states that are addressing concerns about towing. And this particular one is dealing with if you've got a disabled, specifically a disabled large truck. As it is now, folks may be familiar with in Louisiana, there's a weight exemption for that initial tow whenever it's being transported to the nearest repair facility. But as has been pointed out to House lawmakers there in Louisiana who have approved it, and now it's made its way over to the Senate where it's had a Senate Transportation Committee hearing, they're trying to address with this legislation instances when you've got a supply chain deal going on where there may be a lack of needed parts at the preferred facility, or maybe there isn't somebody available to work on the vehicle. I personally, for my personal vehicle, had experienced that recently where I had to have a vehicle essentially sit in a car dealership service lot for almost a month before they could actually have somebody make the repair. But they're looking to address whenever they need to make a secondary tow again because that initial facility, the preferred facility that maybe the vehicle owner wanted to transport it to, they can't work on it in a timely fashion. So, wanting to make sure that they can have a secondary tow, that it's authorized, wouldn't be assessed an overweight penalty when, as long as you're towing that disabled truck within 150 miles from the location where the vehicle became disabled. So essentially just having that exception in there for those occasions when, again, the first facility that the vehicle was towed to turns out that they can't do the repair in a timely fashion.
Yeah, and I know the one of the House committees there in Louisiana held a hearing on this. I know there was a lively debate about whether or not this would be a benefit to people out there, and whether it could cause some issues. So we'll keep an eye on that. That is certainly something that's going to continue.
There's definitely whenever it had its most recent committee hearing, it was good that there was a member of the committee who spoke out and essentially advocated for the fact that with these truck drivers here, they're also taxpayers. We need to be able to do something to help them address this issue. While it's uncommon, we need to do something to help them. And we will see if that helps the issue get through, again, the legislature onto the governor.
Let's get back to summer weather. Florida, very nice in the summer. We've got, I think, 2 bills that have been signed into law by Governor Ron DeSantis there. These are about transportation funding for the most part, I believe. But Keith, you'll fill us in here.
Yeah. The first one addressing vehicle-related taxes, fees, as it is now in Florida. This is existing law has stated that a minimum of 15% of all state revenues that go into the state's transportation fund on an annual basis, they must be applied for public transportation projects. Again, a minimum of 15%. There is no cap, so there is no maximum amount that can be going towards transit projects. What this new law does is it just puts a cap of 20%. So it could be 15 to 20% of the money that goes into the state's transportation trust fund. It can go for public transit projects. Obviously, that we're talking about revenue that's from fuel taxes, vehicle-related fees, that sort of thing. So wanting to make sure that they did put, in addition to the minimum, they do put a cap, trying, again, obviously the focus being on trying to make sure that more money is made available for actual road projects.
And the second one is funding going toward some of those transportation projects and giving the Florida DOT, I guess, a bit more power. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, with this particular one, again, related to money that has applied or projects that the focus is on improvements for transit-related stuff. So putting a requirement that you have public meetings, if the focus is on maybe taking some regular travel lanes away for vehicles and instead of applying it for transit purposes. Trying to make sure that there are public meetings that take place. And also provision in this new law, the second bill that was signed into law, it's putting $15 million a year, or in the neighborhood of $15 million a year, for inland ports there in Florida and other intermodal logistics centers. So the focus there, quite a bit here in Florida this year.
Updates, these stories, and more at landline.media. Keith, we appreciate it as always.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And that's our show for today. From all of us here at Landline Now, we thank you for listening. We'll catch you next time.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
Capital Reman is your leading source for quality remanufactured engines and components. Capital Reman stands ready to serve all OOIDA members to help reduce costly engine repairs or replacement. Visit capitalreman.com today and use code OOIDA10 to save.
Get the most power performance out of your rig with Howe's Diesel Defender. It provides maximum lubricity and contains specialized IDX4 detergent to clean and prevent deposits and safely removes harmful water. Visit HowesProducts.com for more information.
I'm a dad,
a son,
a husband,
wife.
I'm a writer,
photographer.
I farm.
I'm a veteran.
I love old cars, fishing,
my kids,
chrome,
and I am
a professional truck driver.
And together we are OOIDA.
OOIDA was founded by truckers to stand up and speak on behalf of truckers. We've done that by combining the individual voices of our members into a single, powerful voice. Protecting your interests, defending your rights.
Join us!
Make your voice heard. Join OOIDA, the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association. Call 1-800-444-5791 or visit OOIDA.com.